Hello! So it's been a while since you've seen me using the bookcase background, and I thought I'd jump on using the bookcase background today because I'm going to be talking about something specifically AuthorTube related, kind of, sort of. There's been something of a rift going on in AuthorTube lately. I don't want to say people are jumping ship, but there are more and more AuthorTubers are starting to transition themselves away from AuthorTube and to something called CreatorTube, which is meant to be some more of an open form, flexible space where they're not restricted to just writing. So I know for a fact former AuthorTubers such as Marissa Mohi and Cache Warren are definitely going to start transitioning their channels more towards the CreatorTube space. I also saw a non-former AuthorTuber, Maiga Vidal, who is a songwriter and does music analysis. She is also did the CreatorTube tag. Personally, I think I fall into a little bit more of Kate Kavanaugh's camp, where my thoughts on AuthorTube versus CreatorTube are still evolving. So I thought I would turn on the camera and talk about the different philosophies of AuthorTube versus CreatorTube. Because for me personally, I feel like I fit into some aspects of one camp and some aspects of the other camp, but I also don't fit into either camp in other aspects. So this is not to judge whether other AuthorTubers should be staying with AuthorTube or jumping to CreatorTube. This is not a sort of a broad judgment on either philosophy or camp or YouTube group. These are just my personal thoughts related to the inner workings of my own channel. Now, as you all know, I don't exclusively create what you would call AuthorTube content. I also create beauty content, but beauty content doesn't really, as far as I'm aware, fit within the philosophy of CreatorTube. Beauty YouTube is almost kind of its own thing, but I also don't create sort of even typical AuthorTube content within sort of the general ramifications of AuthorTube content. As of right now, for the majority of the time I've been making AuthorTube videos, I've been writing fanfiction. Now, there is an exception to this. During last November's NaNoWriMo, I was writing an original story, but that is such a small portion of my AuthorTube content compared to the majority of my AuthorTube content during which I was writing fanfiction. I actually don't know of any other AuthorTubers who do write fanfiction as part of their AuthorTube content. If you do know, I would love to hear about them in the comments. But it does put into question whether my AuthorTube content would be considered AuthorTube content, because I think one of the sort of issues a lot of creators have towards the sort of the restrictions of AuthorTube is that, generally speaking, there's a pressure to either be published or to be working towards something that is publishable as opposed to just writing for fun. Now, my work is not published in the traditional sense, as in I don't make any money off of the fan fiction I write, obviously, but it is published in the sense that a lot of it is just out there. Most of my work you can just find on the most well-known fanfiction sites. So I don't have that same problem of being an unpublished author who is talking about writing on AuthorTube but has no sort of published work to show for it. I can talk about my fanfiction in my AuthorTube videos and people can just search up what I'm writing and just see it all, including some of my oldest work. I think my oldest story, the publishing date says like 2012, 2013, but was actually written around 2010 to 2011. So we're talking like 10 years worth of work on my fanfiction accounts. So I don't quite fit the typical mold of what you would think of as a AuthorTuber, and I'm going to circle back to that idea later, but I have never really had any of that criticism sort of lobbied against me. I know a lot of creators have been talking about sort of the negativity and the toxicity within the AuthorTube community, and I don't know if it's just I am not big enough to see any of that negativity. So for me, there was just a little bit of a disconnect. Not to invalidate what people are saying. I absolutely believe if they say there's toxicity going on, I believe there's toxicity going on. It's just I myself have never experienced any of the toxicity that other people are talking about. And I've just never seen any of it for myself, or I've not actively sought it out. I have a similar feeling towards the beauty community as well. I know even more so than the AuthorTube community, the beauty community is sort of seen by the wider public as this very dramatic, toxic space. But I think, at least on that side of YouTube, almost certainly it is because I don't seek out those elements of the community. And other than, I think for the beauty community, it's kind of a different situation because the beauty community is much larger compared to AuthorTube. It is much easier to run into those more sort of drama-related videos or that more sort of dramatic, controversial content compared to AuthorTube. What I mean to say with that, in conclusion, is I've never been criticized for not fitting the typical AuthorTube mold. So, moving on to CreatorTube, I like the idea of CreatorTube, this sort of like freeform, kind of just a creative space. The problem with that, personally, is I don't really consider myself to be a creative person. I know that sounds ridiculous, but just hear me out. From what I've seen of CreatorTube, and in all fairness, CreatorTube is not exactly a very old space. It has existed before this most recent movement, but from what I could find on CreatorTube, it's a lot of visual art. It's a lot of like, and that makes sense for a video format. You need to see the visual for you to get anything out of it. And even though I am a writer and then I'm also an actor, I think, maybe, that's a whole nother story, but I did complete my undergrad in performance drama. You could tell my school was a Shakespeare school by the collection I've got going on over here of all my Shakespeare plays. Oh my god, this thing is gonna fall. So while a lot of my interests sort of fall into that creative sphere, for me personally, if there's one sort of side of creativity that I've always struggled with, it's visual arts. I've never had the sort of spatial reasoning needed for like painting and drawing. Actually, those sort of things are more my sister's forte. My little sister, she is very much into visual arts and painting and acrylics and that kind of thing. I do know the bare basics of sewing because I took sort of a costuming class one semester in college, and then I can kind of build things. If you watched my November NaNoWriMo daily vlogs, you'll know at the beginning of November we were wrapping up the build crew for Legally Blonde. So the build crew is the people who build the sets, and throughout college I was involved in a lot of different build crews for different shows. And through the construction skills I picked up by participating in the build crews, I was able to get my summer job teaching theater, and eventually I ended up taking over the position as the production manager for the younger kids shows, so I would help with the set and help with the production elements of that as well. And then also, obviously now that we're not really doing in-person summer camps anymore, I've been helping my dad on various construction projects. But I don't think that's really an element of my interest that I could turn into content for my YouTube channel. I don't want to get too personal, but especially living at home, I really can't do anything that's gonna take up too much space, or that has a lot to do with like physical things, or like buying physical things and then like spreading them out over a large space. Like the fact that I buy a fair amount of makeup is already kind of a point of contention. My family's just, they're very minimalist, and they like having their house to be an open space with as few things as possible. So yeah, I've never done a room tour, but my friends sometimes get freaked out by how few things there are in my room. So both in terms of my skill level, or lack of skill level, and just the sort of practical possibilities of the space I'm living in right now, that is what makes me think CreatorTube is not for me either. So in conclusion, I don't think I fit either of these molds perfectly, and to circle back to something I mentioned earlier, I think that's totally fine. My thoughts are still kind of evolving on the subject, whether maybe, I'm not sure actually if I think one title or one club, I don't know, is better for me than the other. I think I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. Like, and also I've thought about creating a second channel before to separate my AuthorTube content from my beauty content. And I don't like that idea. It's just too much hassle and too much to keep track of. I already keep track of 3 separate accounts on different fanfiction websites. I don't think I need a second YouTube channel to also keep track of. I tend to use the AuthorTube tags when I tag my AuthorTube content, and then I tend to use a totally different set of tags that are more beauty related for my beauty content. I think that's just where I'm gonna keep going. Honestly, from what I've seen, to be fair, I haven't been on YouTube for that long, but the fact that I am posting 2 different kinds of content really hasn't been affecting my views all that much. I think it's been pretty even, at an even split between the views I get from my AuthorTube content and the views I get from my beauty content. It's been pretty 50-50, and I think that's because I've been doing both AuthorTube and BeautyTube content from the beginning. But I am open to changing my mind. I don't know, this year has been a year of a lot of unexpected things and sort of changes I never thought I would see. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.